Welcome to Teen ypww Lesson 13. Today's topic is knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Our lesson text is coming out of Colossians chapter 1, verses 1 through 23, Romans chapter 13, verses 6 through 8, Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 13, and 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 7. The memory verse is coming out of Colossians chapter 1, verse 9. I will read the King James Version first and then the New International Version. For this cause we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you, and to desire that ye might be filled with the knowledge of his will and all wisdom and spiritual understanding. The New International Version of Colossians chapter 1, verse 9. For this reason, since the day we heard about you, we have not stopped praying for you. We continually ask God to fill you with the knowledge of his will through all the wisdom and understanding that the Spirit gives. The key for today's lesson: raise your hand if you have a question. The focus for today's lesson: wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. This week, we will conclude our discussions on the following: fruitfulness, the fruit of the Spirit, spiritual gifts, and good works. Each of these topics is weighty on its own, meaning that there is a plethora of information on each of these topics that was not shared in this quarter. However, our goals of introducing and defining these topics were met. Therefore, the challenge for you, teen listeners, is to dig deeper and find out more. For instance, if you want to know more about the fruit of the Spirit, you can do a thorough biblical search and Christian literary search that will give you additional insights about this subject. Now, on the other side of the discussion, we do not want you to become overwhelmed as you learn more about these biblical principles. Raise your hand if you have a question. This means to ask, inquire, and question those Christian leaders at your local church about biblical subjects that you want more information about. Your conversations with your leaders and your self-study research will give you much of the understanding that you need. Our memory verse, Colossians chapter 1, verse 9, is an excerpt from the letter that the Apostle Paul wrote to the church at Colossae. Once again, he reminds them that he is praying for them as much as he can. Then Paul lists two areas of their lives that he is praying for. Number 1, knowledge of God's will and all wisdom. And number 2, spiritual understanding. At first glance, these two phrases seem synonymous. Therefore, obtaining a clear understanding of their exact meaning is a worthy study for us. Knowledge of God's will and all wisdom. The main idea of this statement is that we are to gain knowledge about God with a purpose in mind. We are not to read a Bible story only to know it or knowledge, but we should also look for the purpose of the story to determine how its truths can be applied to our lives. Wisdom. Wisdom is defined as the ability to make great decisions based on knowledge and experiences. Spiritual understanding. The main idea of this statement is that we should live our lives under the guidance of the Holy Spirit so that we will be controlled by the Spirit and not by the flesh. Evidenced by Galatians chapter 5, verse 16. Living our lives by the directives of the Spirit will increase our spiritual understanding. Many non-Christians and Christians alike have Bible knowledge, but they don't apply this knowledge to their everyday lives. Apostle Paul identifies the group in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 7 as ever learning but never coming into the knowledge of truth. It is our desire, teen listeners, that you all be A students in the knowledge of God and personify this knowledge in your everyday lives. The more knowledge you have, along with spiritual insights, the better life you will live as representatives of Jesus Christ. Sometimes it is necessary to discuss heavier subjects, like the lessons this quarter. As every good teacher knows, it is their duty to occasionally give students above grade level assignments to challenge their ability to grasp difficult concepts. We trust that everyone made it through this quarter successfully. The Apostle Paul challenged the church at Colossae with this same lesson. Why? Because he wanted them to be smart, wise, and mature in the knowledge of Jesus Christ. As their spiritual leader and biblical forefather, Paul wanted the saints to know that he loved them so much and that he didn't want them to fail. He wanted them to be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might, as stated in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. Moms, dads, pastors, and Christian leaders all have the responsibility of doing their very best in their leadership roles. Some of the things they are tasked to do are more difficult than others. It's okay, teen listeners. We are confident that you will grasp all and learn all that you need to as you grow and mature in your Christian journey. It is also okay for you to pray for your leaders as they, in turn, pray for you. We realize that not all leaders are good leaders. Nevertheless, we will continue to celebrate all of the good leaders that God has blessed us to have in our lives. God has strategically placed them in our lives to bless us and the generations that will come after us. The questions for today's lesson. Number 1, the Apostle Paul encouraged the church at Colossae to strengthen their spirituality. He also applauded them for their achievements. What achievements did this church accomplish? Research it. Number 2, the words knowledge, wisdom, and understanding are the important vocabulary for this lesson. Define and discuss what they mean and how they are related to each other. The end. God bless you, and thank you for joining me today.